Welcome to Stars, Stones, and Stories. I am your host, Rama, and together we are weaving ancient future wisdom as we birth the new earth. If you are into astrology, cosmology, living mythology, earth-based spirituality, Kundalini technology, and ancestral healing, you are home. If you stumbled upon this podcast and are new to these topics, this is Sovereign Sanctuary to expand and deepen your wisdom. As a cosmic priestess, I witness many at the threshold of great transformation. I specialize in astrological divination, sacred site activations, and priestess arts for the Aquarian age. You may learn more about my work at ramatribe.com or follow Rama Tribe on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and support the work at patreon.com/ramatribe. This community is your opportunity to claim your story, your unique identity and power, knowing that you are the hero of your own journey. You are a hologram for the collective, and you matter. The world needs your gifts and creativity now more than ever. Crystallize your medicine. In this episode, From Consumption to Creation Culture, Kerry Wilde, who is a Femme guide and personal soul stylist, and I discussed fast fashion, how you can break your addiction and dress in a way that elevates your frequency and represents your true self. I break down the current cosmic weather as Mars is now officially retrograde. So we circle back around Mars and dive into the topics of initiation. And we will be welcoming a Virgo New Moon. So I talk about this upcoming lunation. In honor of the Virgo New Moon and the great celestial mother, I will introduce you to the Nekhbet goddess, and we culminate with a meditative journey to synthesize your experience. Ancestors, 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 we call to you, we call to you, we call to you. We're so grateful for your lives, and we know we cannot do this alone. We cannot do this without you. So we welcome you. We welcome your backing and your genius solutions to pour forth like sweet ambrosial nectar from the other world. Thank you, ancestors. Thank you for your gifts, your trials. Thank you for providing the shoulders upon that which we stand upon. Thank you for your support, seen and unseen in these times. And we welcome in the powers and spirits of the East, the element of air, the powers and spirits of the South, the element of fire, the powers and spirits of the West, the element of water, the powers and spirits of the North, the element of earth. We welcome all of the directions and all of the keepers of the directions. We ground into Mother Earth, and from this anchored space where we are connected and fully immersed in our sense of belonging, we gaze up into the cosmos and we welcome in all the planetary beings, the luminaries, all the goddess and god asteroids, our starseed nations, and our guides and our guardians of the holiest and highest calibers to walk with us in the sacred journey of life. Here we are with another episode of Stars, Stones, and Stories. Thank you for being a part of this community since the last episode, episode 9. There are 150 new listeners that have joined this tribe, so thank you so much. I hope you continue to drop in and listen, and I'd love to hear from you. I really, truly believe that a podcast is a form of collaboration. I know you're so inundated with technology and so many things out there are vying for our attention. And I really am dedicated to growing this community. Podcasting is a true form of art that I've wanted to be a part of for many, many, many years. And 2020 urged me to dive in. And so I'm committed to growing this for the long haul. So I want to hear from you. I want to know what you love about the podcast, what you'd like to hear more of, what you would like to see shifted or have less of. I'd really love to know, how are the guided meditations working? Are you having profound experiences? Do you want more of that, less of that? Do you want more interviews, less interviews? Do you prefer it's just me solo talking about astrology? Let me know. I really, really want to hear from you. So you can DM me on Instagram at Rama Tribe or at Stars, Stones, and Stories. You can email me satnam at ramakar.com. That's satnam, SATNAM at RAMAKAUR.com. Let me know what you love, what you would wish there was less of, what you want to see more of. And yeah, if you've got any specific questions that you'd like for me to raise, I'm here for you. And on that note, I just want to share with you about my Patreon page. It's a way to support this art and some of the other arts that I offer for as little as $3 a month. You can support the show. You can support my weekly Venetian love notes that I've been putting out for over 6 years now, every single Friday, except for when I'm on pilgrimage. So I'm dedicated to keeping that going, to keeping this podcast going, and many, many hours go into planning the podcast, recording, editing, launching it. And at this juncture, this is all done by myself in addition to all the other ways that I create art. And so your support helps me keep going. So if you feel inspired, I welcome it. Patreon.com/Rama Tribe. And if you feel like you can't donate the funds right now, but you want to support the show, promoting it on social media always helps. You can tag me in a post and put me in a story of yours. You can send the podcast link out to your friends, at least 3 friends at a time, or text it to them. Anything helps. So I appreciate you helping to spread the good word. Last episode, we discussed cultural renaissance and how in these times we are experiencing massive collapse on so many fronts. In fact, it is very close to being overwhelming. And at the same time, we are planting seeds of new life. We are growing new concepts, new paradigms. This is a time of true renewal. We must ask ourselves, what do we want to build, to create, as this is such a fertile, juicy time on the planet. And I would like to share this quote by Arundhati Roy from her piece, "The Pandemic is a Portal." She's an amazing writer, so I do recommend you check her work out. Historically, pandemics have forced humans to break with the past and imagine their world anew. This one is no different. It is a portal, a gateway between one world and the next. We can choose to walk through it, dragging the carcasses of our prejudice and hatred, our avarice, our data banks, and our dead ideas, our dead rivers and smoky skies behind us. Or we can walk through lightly with a little luggage, ready to imagine another world and ready to fight for it. On that note, I wish to introduce to you our guest for this episode, where Kerry Wilde and I discuss how we are moving from consumption to creation culture. And I'd like to introduce Kerry Wilde to you. She's an amazing mother, a personal soul stylist, and a Femme guide. She guides women to connect to their highest muse and majesty through the art of intentional dressing and feminine rebirth. From fashion career to circle holder, Kerry's work and greatest passion is connecting women to see and connect with their own greatness through styling, coaching, and femme embodiment practices. Fulfilling a fashion career over 18 years and extensively studying healing therapies for well over a decade, these two worlds collide and are unified in her work. The belief that outer beauty begins with a deep soul connection within. She inspires women to move through blocks and awaken a deep sense of freedom in their lives by tapping into the grace of all situations. She supports and holds women to cross thresholds into the mature feminine with love and embodied guidance.
I can start with the piece around beauty and what beauty is to me. I mean, the piece that I'd really like to bring forward today is really the piece around adornment and what adornment is in this modern day. And you know, I've actually been a practitioner of yoga for probably about 23 years now. So I've had a long kind of spiritual journey with different kinds of yoga and different kinds of practices that I've always kind of practiced and been in lots of different spiritual lineages. And for me, the missing piece was the connection to this inner realm of presence and then the outer realm of beauty, and how the relationship between the inner and the outer, and almost like if you were a practitioner of some lineages, then the outer was almost rejected. There was a rejection of beauty, a rejection of desire, ego, and almost like a rebellion against the feminine in some of the spiritual journeys that I've been on. And so this dissolvement of ego and any attachment almost made, well, it made me forget the essence and the qualities of this feminine spirit, or the feminine principle that adorns nature in so much beauty every season. So I think when I first discovered this piece around the fact that our clothing and the way we express ourselves in our outer projection, and that may be through our second skin, the clothing that we wear, or it may be through like actual jewelry pieces or symbols that we wear, or the way we style our hair, or the makeup colors that we choose. And all of these details can be a spiritual experience now, and I've been on this journey of discovering how the vehicle of clothing can be a sacred spiritual experience just as much as sitting on a yoga mat and meditating. There's an ancient way of being that is connected with intentional dressing and really bringing through the transmission of who you are and how you want that to be pushed out there, and kind of how you want that to be magnetic to other people that are witnessing you. And we see this in tribes. I mean, we know about this throughout history. And so this self-discovery for me has been, what is my connection to clothes as a spirit made into matter? This is, somebody has put energy into this piece of clothing. There are hands, there's a human process that is taking place. And how does that then translate into the finished product that I'm putting on my skin? And is that aligned with me, who I am today, and my values and my integrity? And also, how do I make this an experience of being with myself through artistry, through beauty, through creation? So adornment has been this kind of pillar, which then is a pillar in all of my work that I currently share. And it's been the missing piece, I feel, through many years of practice and through many years of trying to unite the inner and the outer experience in my life, and not wanting to fit in anymore to the culture.
To the culture being like the spiritual culture, or the culture being the mainstream culture, or both cultures? Or something else?
Well, I really believe that the patriarchal culture runs through all of these spaces, whether they are deemed spiritual spaces or it's just the societal culture that is mainstream. I have definitely adopted style to belong to different tribes, whether that be a scene of yoga or whether that be a scene of dancing and clubbing. I've definitely worn so many masks to create a sense of belonging. It's a human behavioral, we all want to feel like we are part of the tribe, because there's a form of safety in that. So clothing has so many layers to it, and our connection to it from a human behavioral lens is that we have clothing for survival first and foremost, and then we can really move into this sense of belonging and love, and moving into self-actualization through the way we use dress and use clothing as a form of expression. So really the foot, but the first thing is we need it to survive. That's what it's created for. So depending on, I guess, where I've been in my spiritual journey, it's like sometimes I've wanted to hide and almost use it in that very functional way of like, well, I need to wear something to go and pick the kids up from school. And so it's a form of like just existing and not really creating a form of art into the world. And then as we then start to tend to I guess like the fragments of or the distortions that we've come into contact with in terms of the mainstream, like you must have no hips and you must have be quite boyish in your shape but have massive boobs, and the way that we kind of like had that distortion around our shape and other distortions around what is safe, like in a sexual sense, in terms of like our skirt lines and the way we reveal our skin and our flesh, and the male gaze and how that plays into what we buy, how we dress, what we feel good in. When we start to go that layer deeper and untangle what those archies, whatever they are, the patriarchies or those cultures, what they represent, then we can start to really shift into like, okay, what am I here for? Who am I dressing for? What's underneath this? How can I come home to what is completely true for my soul rather than performing into any collectives of what they and expectations.
What we wear is so complex. There's so much behind it. And absolutely, I feel like it is ultimately, as we're evolving and particularly women are really waking up to their own feminine power, and not just feminine power, right? But that the strength of that inner masculine and inner femininity, that we can express that through our adornment. It is about going beyond that patriarchal culture and really reclaiming the ways of the goddess, in the sense that each one of us, we get to choose what beauty, what elegance means to us.
Yeah, I love what you said. Yeah. I think it's the frequency, isn't it, of what you wear and how that can then allow for you to project more of yourself. So there's so many times where we've been blocked by or not blocked, but we're still inhabiting old skins, like old parts of ourselves that we have outgrown, or old identities, or even wounds of the feminine where we haven't felt like we can dress in a certain way. So we've adopted something very safe. And I work with women that have, clothing that is about sometimes 5 sizes too big because they feel safe really wearing a bigger, kind of hiding away in something that is very, very too big. And also just, some of the color choices are so neutral that almost like they're afraid of color, they're afraid of being seen. So there is definitely that inherent thread of the lack and the unworthiness and the not feeling confident in their body, and also in their choice and in their artistry, because as we connect into that feminine energy and we go down and into the body to feel what's there, like you said, it can be a lot of deep inner work, but also marrying those two worlds with, once we begin to harness the feminine energy that runs through us, and that is our creative juice, that's like our erotic edge. It's like, let's get playful, let's get curious, what else can we bring into this? So I think a lot of times we've almost I know I did, been governed into this is the magazine. Here you go and buy this. Look what's on trend. Here's the shops. You know, we're in that almost neural pathway of like, it's here, it is presented. Go and choose something. Ask the shop assistant whether it fits you properly, and then walk away with something that many times you like, does this suit me? Is this for me? I don't know. It's on trend, or it's, you know, it's accessible, so I'm just going to bring it in. So I think the power of getting really conscious to what you choose is, for me, it's definitely this down and in. So through my work, it's an inner journey to outer. So we connect with the inner realms of the body and the psyche to then be able to move and shift out to the other side in our queen essence, in our majesty. So then we can dress from a place of real consciousness, understanding, our blueprint and what we want to create. So it can, once we, really commune with the earth and listen to what wants to birth through us, that piece can expand into so many different facets of our lives. But the piece that I'm focusing on is the clothing. But when I work with some women, they're like, oh my God, this is affecting my business. This is affecting, because suddenly the codes have come in where they are like, oh, my inner beauty can then shift and transform so many other areas of my life. I can become more magnetic. I can become, those opportunities are opening up because I'm not afraid to be seen. So many times we're afraid to show ourselves for who we truly are, which is, there's an inherent beauty in who you are and your beingness without having to do anything.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is such a journey about the willingness to be seen. And when we think about like fast fashion and the whole industry of corporations, so much of that is about really removing that individual identity and then selling to everyone the concepts that have actually come from ancient indigenous wisdom that have been stolen and taken. And it is absolutely about the frequency. And I think as we're becoming more conscious and more awakened, and we're all on our own unique individual journeys, so many people are waking up to the reality that frequency that is in everything, whether it's our food, our clothing, our water, how we're spending our quality time. Like I really do feel like more and more people are coming online to the importance of being in the present moment and really choosing wisely with the frequency.
Yeah, I think I was having a chat with someone earlier and we were talking about this piece around taking the mind concept of this awakeness or awareness, that we tend to watch the documentaries, listen to the conspiracy theories, everything is in the mind. But how about if we drink it down and in, and we take it into the body, and we allow it to kind of assimilate in the body as medicine, of like, wow, I'm still holding this here and I'm still holding that here and I haven't reclaimed that part of myself. How can we then, this awareness that we have about the planet and how much everything is intense and shifting, if we drink that medicine and really embody the medicine of that, then we can create shifts and we can go from just consuming into creating. We can then go from something that is just kind of projected towards us and broadcast on us into something that is shifting and breaking through to a new reality. But it's only when we take it, I feel, down and into the body, to feel it, to alchemize it, that we can then create action. Because what we need is, we need people to be in their action. How are you consciously living with this truth? So we've done the food piece. You know, we look at the ingredients, we know, you know, about fast food, we've been doing that. But then are we looking at the ingredients of clothing? Are we looking at the labels? Are we seeing the country of origin? Are we looking at the fabric, the dyes, the frequency? Because what's in that frequency is a number of processes, a number of hands, a number of countries, sometimes depending on where fabric is coming from, where the manufacturer plant is, and then when it's shipped over here. So it goes through, one piece of clothing will go through a million different hands. Mm-hmm. So I think the frequency is not just about, I don't know, just like, it's not just a conscious creative choice. It's also what's inherently interwoven into the pieces that we choose and into the brands that we buy into.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's such a major piece. And it is about really becoming mature and responsible as consumers. Like we're being asked to level up so much on the planet. It's not just, it's on every front, you know, to be spiritually mature, to be mature in knowing that every dollar we spend, we have to consider, what are we buying into? Because that is our sacred energy. That's a holy exchange. And what we're giving our money for should be something that reflects our value systems. When Venus went retrograde earlier this year, that was something I was really imparting with people. Is anytime Venus goes retrograde, she really wants us to get clear about our values and to align our values with our lifestyle, with how we spend our time. And Mars is about to go retrograde. And so this Mars retrograde is an opportunity to really take action. And so perhaps even just from this conversation, it might inspire some, you know, even if it's just 5, 10, 15, 20 people to really consciously shift their connection to their clothing, the frequency, the exchange of all of it. Because we are seeing so many more artisans coming up and creating beautifully handmade garments that are very thoughtful, where the process is very elevated. I'm wondering, Kerry, if you could speak about your own personal journey in the fashion industry and how you got inspired to weave in your goddess path and your spiritual journey into what it is you're creating and manifesting now in the world.
Yeah. So I started as a young girl just completely in fashion. Like I used dressing up as a vehicle to create. So for me, it was like, if there was a piece of fabric, I would make it into a hair veil and like pretend I was, you know, it was my way of like really playing and getting lost in that imaginary world. I would just literally leave this world and go through that vehicle of dressing and adorning. So it was in me from a very early age. There's so many crazy photos that my mum has shown me that I'm like, what am I doing? But I was so happy. And yeah, and I always say that, you know, going into my mum's wardrobe was like a temple experience. The smells, the textures, the pieces that were wrapped that I wasn't allowed to go into, the secrecy, the mystery. It was like, whoa, I just wanted to live in there. I just used to go and sit in there. So, you know, that kind of obsession with clothing started really young. And then I studied fashion. I went to university. I then started on a career in fashion where I was in an office environment and faxing, this was back in 99, faxing from a London head office over comments to China, saying, you know, can you do these things that we want adjusting with the samples? And thinking, who is at the end of this fax machine? Like thinking, where is this going? You know, I'm just sort of back, and people are like probably thinking, fax? What the hell's that? But I'm a bit old.
I know what a fax machine is.
Yeah. Okay, that's good.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I recently went through this whole house purchasing situation with my mom and my dad, and my dad was like, well, just, can I fax you something? And I was like, Dad, people don't really fax anymore. I was like, just take a screenshot and text it or email it to me. And he's like, I don't, like, he didn't really understand how to do the screenshot, you know?
Oh my God. Oh, I used to stand at the fax machine for hours. That was my job as an admin. So yeah, crazy.
I'm okay that we're kind of done with the faxes.
Yeah. I know, me too. We're done with that now. And pages and all of those things that were so tricky. I always questioned, who am I sending this to? And it would be like a name of a factory and a name of a person. And it wasn't until I developed, climbed the corporate ladder and became more senior that then I got to fly around the world and actually meet the people in the factories and go and assess them and look at the quality. And my role was a garment technologist. So I was a geek, basically a fashion geek. I know how all clothing is made and the fabrics and the stitches and like every tiny detail is what I understand. It's like a specification of, like an architect putting together the housing specification. It's like I know how to put together, all clothes. So I would go to the factory and we'd have these discussions on how they could improve things and all of that. And I realized that when I went to these places, there was such inherent poverty and actually the difference, I hadn't been to India, I don't think, until I traveled with work. So I was like, whoa, this is a whole, like, what is happening? Being in a massive 4x4 car with lots of kids running at you, banging on the windows. I mean, because I've got brown skin, it wasn't so kind of, I think they thought I was, one of them in a sense. So, but because I was in the car, I was definitely, it was highlighted. And so going into the factories, meeting these people, realizing that they were humans at the end of the chain, and that inspired me to ask them questions and to find out about their lives and talk to them human to human instead of going in as the professional and kind of speaking down to them. I really met them on that human level. I wanted to understand what was happening in their lives, and I saw many things. I saw the slave labor thread that would have boys running out of one room of a factory, the other side, and me saying, what's going on there? And they were like, nothing. I saw and you need to wear this big mask to go in this room. And the people working in the room didn't have to wear a mask. People would be not in safe environments sometimes. And so day to day, the retailers aren't in the factories, so therefore they're not seeing exactly what goes on every day. So obviously for a factory visit, everything would be perfect, and then you can imagine you don't know what happens week on week. So I couldn't sleep at night knowing what I'd seen, and I felt the frequency of this. There's some that something doesn't feel good. I feel heavy. I felt really, really heavy, and in the end I got really sick with work. I got not just with work, but like I contracted an inner ear disorder called labyrinthitis, which meant I was on the floor of my house. It was like the floor was spinning, and it's an imbalance in your fluid in your inner ear, which is like a labyrinth shape. And the such an interesting thing. I've just thought labyrinth earrings, actually, because
it's such fascinating symbology, because you like worked yourself out of the labyrinth.
I know.
Literally. the goddess was like, okay, we gotta put you in the labyrinth.
I know. So I was literally on the middle of my floor, like, please, what is going on here? And then I'd just find myself, because I couldn't walk, so I'd be like crawling up my stairs and stuff. It was, and then I had to go and have these eye thing, like just lots of neurological ways of trying to get myself out of it, but really feeling a lot of guilt and shame for stepping away from the corporate capitalist ladder, feeling like I was a failure, like I felt immense guilt for taking time off work. And I took 6 months out, and then I left the job and I went to train in yoga. I felt to me that the fashion industry was toxic for me because of the ways of working and the 9 to 5 culture and all of the, which was more like 8 to 6 that at some place, it was like, it took everything out of me, all of the reserves and the feminine energy that I was, that I'd generated, just felt like they were just being exhausted into this linear path that actually made me feel like I was slumped on the sofa on a Friday night with half a bottle of wine. And I call it like the landfill of my life. We talk about this like fast fashion is buy, use and dump. So it ends up on landfill. I was the epitome of that that culture, because I was just laying on my sofa like, I'm so unhappy. Why? Is this the dream? I don't want to live this dream.
Whose dream is this?
Whose dream is this? Can I please get shaken and waken? And I did. The goddess shook me and woke me through illness. And she took me into that labyrinth, and it's a hard journey. But now I realize the frequency of the fast fashion world that's entrenched with oppression of women, racism, slavery, all of the codes that are inherent in that system, as in it cannot be removed from it easily. It is part of it. It's part and parcel with fast fashion. The way that there's no traceability and the people are not honored, at one end of the chain, people are making no money, just enough money to survive, but barely. And then barely. And then the other side are profiting massively. And I felt like the disparity of the system just wasn't honoring anybody. It was just the people that, the profits over people and planet every single time. And I really tried to, in so many companies, state the case of the people, state the case of sustainability. Can we look at this now? Can we do a project? Can I do a project? Can I help? And it was just met with a block every time there was an obstacle, because they wanted to focus on what was going to be profitable, what was going to, help their profit line. So at the bottom of everything is the dharma, and the mission within my work is that I want to be the voice for the people that can't speak on these things, that are still trapped in the system of fast fashion, and allow people that have privilege and the power of their dollar or pound to actually use that in a conscious way for good, and for the good for themselves. Like, the fact that it's about, my work is about styling, is that this is a individual way of tapping into your creativity and your artistry, and also a way of being conscious about your consumption and how you are channeling your your currency into the planet. We're leaving a legacy here, and this is the time now to really be aware of your actions, not in a scary, fearful way, but in a like, okay, it's time to move away from this.
That legacy piece is huge, because that consumptive fashion or consumptive food, all of those chains are the modern day form of slavery. That slavery consciousness, unfortunately, we are still healing the power and control dynamics, the abuse, and the way people consume is extremely addictive. And fashion tends to be a way of filling people up, where there's grief, where there's pain, where there's a lack. It is a way of shutting down those emotions. I'm wondering if you can speak to someone who's listening to this, who is like, oh my gosh, I've got a closet full of fast fashion, factory made clothing. They're feeling plummeted and listening to this, and they know they could do better, and they know that they could adorn themselves with clothing that would also raise their frequency, but they don't have a budget to go, spend $400 on a beautiful handmade tunic, or whatever it is, like what would you recommend, or like 4 actionable steps someone could take today
Yeah.
to elevate their adornment and also to become more mindful of the legacy that they're leaving, and what they're teaching other generations about how to adorn and how to consume consciously?
Yeah, okay. So the first thing would be about awareness. So just becoming aware is the first step to all of this. It's like um, stopping the consumption, just like anchor in the ground, like, okay, it stops here and now. And even have a time limit that you're going to put on yourself for stopping that consumption. So I ran a program last year that was a 40-day detox from fast fashion program, which is really super helpful. So, you know, if you want to do it in 40 days, just maybe say, right, this is it. I'm going to see what this is like, have a taste of not buying, and then get really clear on what you have in your collection. So really understanding, okay, yeah, these pieces need to go. These are ready, because it's like dead energy, and it can kind of stagnate and kind of hold you back from really accessing the, you know, if you think of that in all of your, you know, your homes, it's like if you've got something that is like that stagnancy, and it's kind of, everything holds energy. So if you can think about your clothing, you want to really kind of shift those into giving them to friends, or creating, you know, a secondhand container that you know, sell to others, or something like that, where you're shifting these out. And the other thing is to really, you have the awareness of sustainability. I think it's plugging into the macro and the damage that it's doing, because until you know what's happening out there, it's almost like you're blind to it, so you bypass it. You kind of know that it's not that great, but you haven't really looked and done the research. But that is it. Yeah, there's a few documentaries that are really hard hitting, that once you've watched them, you can't unwatch them, and it stays with you in your psyche. So it's good to almost brainwash yourself in the direction of, hang on, let me research the sustainable piece. And so during that time when you've unplugged, you're kind of filling up with like, okay, what's really going on behind the scenes? Let's have a look at this. And then finding avenues for yourself on how comfortably for your budget you can do this in a more ethical and sustainable way. So for instance, you may want to shop on eBay or Poshmark and look at things that are vintage, just knowing that the pieces that you already have invested in will become your vintage if they last. I mean, sometimes they're not made in the best quality, but you know, I've got pieces. In fact, I'm wearing a pair of jeans that are Topshop jeans that I bought about eight or 10 years ago, and they've become my vintage jeans. And so there's no shame around that, because at one stage I invested in them. And then, so I think you don't have to like throw everything out. It's really like, okay, I have these pieces, and I love these pieces, but you know, not buying new is quite a big shift for some people. So I would say to do it for a certain amount of days, and then during that time, as well as researching the macro, you can begin to look at the micro in terms of brands. Like, are there any brands that are accessible to me in my price range? Are there brands that are have the aesthetic that I'm really looking for? So maybe it's an investment piece. And so we're looking at clothing in a whole new way, rather than this transactional, fast, every season I need new things. It's like, what's the longevity? How long is that really going to last me? You're starting to go back to like a slow fashion approach, which comes from our ancestry. Actually, clothing was made, you know, probably by a local seamstress in our area, if not in our homes. So it's coming back home to the reality that clothing is an investment. It's energy. It's it's got work involved in it. It's, you know, if you look at how clothing is made, you'll probably be shocked. You're like, wow, that takes time. It takes process. So
It does.
Yeah.
Growing up, my mom used to make so many of my dresses and my clothing, and I loved it, and certain things would take forever. And I, when I went to, I don't know if in England you have the prom. Do you have prom, Dan?
They've started to do them more now recently.
Okay.
Yeah, we didn't have them when I was younger.
Yeah, in my senior year, there was a homecoming dance and a prom dance, and homecoming's in the fall, prom is in the spring. I had like a potluck dinner with friends before, and she was still at home sewing my dress, and I was in my street clothes, and everyone was dressed up, and I had to like run home, and like, you know, like it was still not totally finished in the bag. And so when it came time for the prom, I was like, Mom, like, no, you're not like doing it again. I was like, I'm not showing up at the prom with like the dress not finished. She was like, no, I'll finish it this time. And so she made my prom dress, and it was done at the last minute, but it just like, it was so beautiful. And we had the most beautiful silk material, and I still have the dress. It doesn't fit anymore, but the material, you know, and the amount of layers and time. And I do think it is so much about shifting this mindset of consumption, right? And we've fallen asleep at the wheel as a collective, and we just like consume. And with our media, with our social media, with our, oh, I'm bored, oh, I've got to watch something, you know, it's like we're always filling our consciousness with something instead of just being and sitting on the earth and just breathing, right? So it's
Totally.
a massive shift in awareness and consciousness.
And from that beingness comes creative spark. So once we stop with the consumption, we know that, you know, even when we have a juice cleanse or something, we like the energy that comes through us in those moments when we're stopping with the overconsumption. Almost, we can feel the energy coming through, and when we step into that spaciousness, or, you know, just beingness, then we can create something new. And that's the foundation of what I do, is that I allow women to come back to their own sense of creative purpose, so that they can then really bring through what is for them. So it's clarifying who they are all the time. It's like sieving the gold through from all of these different other aspects of self that they might have collected along the way. It's like, okay, let's go to the gold, let's find that, and let's, you know, put that into our crowns and wear it.
Yeah, absolutely.
We are, I think you mentioned, moving into the mature spiritual leaders on the planet. Many of us that have been through these journeys and rites of passage, through awakenings, and through also traumatic experiences. These have been, like, they call it like the siddhis in yoga, and, you know, it's like the attainment of this wisdom that comes through the journeys that we've been through. And I think, you know, it's how then it's how knowing that we are, you know, leaders with our own gifts and our own sense of purpose, and even just sharing an element of the piece around fast fashion, or anything that is like the shadow, I guess, on the planet. And we start to just bring light through to it, because it doesn't have to be so dark and heavy. Actually, what we're holding, it can vibrationally, we can shift it through alchemy, through like the drinking of the medicine, and alchemizing it into, and to create something inspiring, and something that's going to actually leave that legacy that we want to see. And for the next generations, you know, we're literally handing it over to them. So how do we want to hand over the car to the next drivers? You know, it's kind of, it's that fertile soil, isn't it, that we want to be leaving behind for them. So yeah, I think we all are that on the planet right now. We're all capable, and it's just about taking responsibility and and sharing your message, whatever that looks like. But yeah, I also just wanted to add that I work with women one-to-one. The way that my work is kind of formulated is that I work on these journeys called Art of Rebirth, which is like a soul style journey. So it's transformation. It's an outer transformation, but there's definitely the inner depths of the journey that we traverse together. And I'm starting a online program next week, which is called Art of Woman, which is an 8-week journey into slow fashion, adornment, and feminine empowerment. So it's moving from this infantilized kind of might want to call like maiden or child self into this responsible, mature queen self that is walking in the world in a very powerful way. So it's a marriage of these two worlds, this feminine embodiment and the fashion journey, which is my work. So yeah, I'm excited for that.
I'm excited too. It's such a genius marriage. I'm so proud of you and your work. It's so needed on the planet.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for being who you are and like really embodying the process and being willing to go through that labyrinth journey, because if you hadn't done that work, you wouldn't be able to do this work now, you know?
No, exactly. Yeah. Thank you so much, Rama. Really appreciate sitting with you.
I dedicated a whole episode to Mars and the divine masculine and the journey we're on back in episode 5. And here we are, episode 10, and Mars finally went retrograde on Wednesday, September 9th. And this is a portal that we're going to be journeying through. This Mars journey will take us all the way through the middle of January 2021, when Mars exits his home sign of Aries and moves into Taurus. So this is a journey for the long haul. It is going to get us through the rest of 2020. And it's very important astrology. There's so much going on in the world right now. Massive, massive fires happening out west. California was my home for 6 years. My daughter was born in Los Angeles. And I dearly, dearly love the land out west. My heart goes out to everyone who has lost their home or might be losing their home. And I just want to acknowledge the fires, but I also want to acknowledge that we're all grieving right now on the planet. There's a lot to grieve. It is an immense time of shedding, of dissolving, and it's important to honor it as such. Even in the grief, there's beauty. There's the promise and the hope of this new earth that we're building. And it's also very, very important to acknowledge that these systems that are dissolving are the systems that, even if we do not agree with them, they are the systems that we've come to know. And there's a loss. There's a great loss that is occurring. And I want to acknowledge that loss and just take a moment as the beautiful rain is pouring down. May this beautiful water element pour over all of us like a balm, a healing balm in these times, washing away our grief and our sorrow and our pain, washing away our fears. And may this powerful water element restore and rejuvenate each one of us. In these times when we don't know what to do, one of the simplest things to do is to come back to your center, to your stillness, to light a candle, to sit down, to breathe, to give gratitude for the abundance that is. This Mars retrograde is absolutely a powerful, powerful time of initiation for each one of us on the planet. There is a deep healing that we have the opportunity to bring to the surface with the divine masculine frequency on planet Earth at this time. We see a lot of images and experiences and examples of the masculine frequency and where it is suffering greatly. And we are in a time where the pure potency of the masculine is needed. That protective, directive, active force. And Mars in Aries is such a beautiful opportunity to bring that in. The intensity is likely to increase from here on out, very much into the middle of November. And the divide just seems to be multiplying. The tactics of divide and conquer are age-old tactics. And I personally have witnessed many people debating and disagreeing on social media. It seems like social media has almost been created for disagreements, particularly Facebook. And so this is a time to see where we can come together. Where's that unification? Where's the oneness? Because at the end of the day, as humans, there's much more that each one of us have in common than we have in differences. And as the world is so greatly shifting, we're being asked to come home to our humanity more and more each day. There's a conjunction happening between Mars and Black Moon Lilith and Aries. And Black Moon Lilith, and she's so much this asteroid goddess of where we can be the victim or the tyrant when that energy is unconscious. And when we make it conscious, it can be a very powerful source of inspiration and of just pure frequential energy. Black Moon Lilith in Aries is shaking each one of us to the core to really get into the self-esteem and where the blocks are. There's some sort of identity crisis happening. This is a time to really drop the stories of comparison and to value yourself in your own unique expression of the divine. This is a time to be a creator, a creatrix, to move away from the culture of consumption to creativity. The longevity of creativity, the legacy of creativity, the art of being human. Mars frequency is so much about power, perceived power, power that has been taken, stolen, power that has been abused, power that has been unconscious, power that is conscious. And this Mars retrograde, it's a powerful time to ask yourself, how and when do I give away my power? To really think about where in your life you are striving to win. Where are you attempting to compete to gain notoriety? Where does the appearance of success play in your life? This is a time to ask yourself, how do I utilize my holy life force, that sacred energy that is uniquely me? I feel like this Mars retrograde is offering us an opportunity to treat the outer world like noise and to go deep, deep within. As this is so much about a reclamation of the sacred, holy energy, instead of constantly tapping into the world of social media and all of the social platforms, from texting, WhatsApp, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, whatever it is, you name it. Instead of tapping in constantly, consciously choosing when and how to tune in and noticing how that affects your life force, how that affects your energy. This requires boundaries. This requires discipline. This requires the willingness to go deep within, to be accountable to self, to know thyself, to take the time to ground and to anchor. As we journey more and more traversing through this age of Aquarius, this age of experience, we are closing the final gates of the Piscean age. And as we close these portals, there is that time to grieve, that time to give gratitude, that time of closure. The Piscean age was so information bound. Who had information, how you got information. And now in the age of Aquarius, all information is becoming transparent and available. And now we are in this age of experience. And so it's important to tap in. How do you feel? How does your body respond in an experience? When I speak to how you feel, I'm speaking, how do you feel instinctually, intuitively, physiologically? How do you feel? Creating and crafting more discernment in the Aquarian age, this age of humanity, futuristic concepts, where boundaries are blurred, interconnected, and interwoven. It is essential to constantly check in. How does this feel in my body? How does this feel in my womb space, in my space of creation? Regardless of gender, all beings have a womb space. How does this feel in my heart space? How does this feel in my third eye? What am I receiving? And utilizing these three grails as a honing device. Mars retrograde is about instinct, about tuning into the physical vessel, into the life force energy, to sense what is happening. The capacity to assert self based upon personal desire. Mars pursues our goals and our dreams. This is about independence, self-sufficiency, how we project ourselves upon the world. Our ability, our courage to stand up for what is just. As Mars rules the head, the sex organs, the muscular system, the blood, the bile, the adrenals, and the elimination of excrement, we can also acknowledge that Saturn rules the bones, the teeth, the hair. Mars, hot and dry. Saturn, cold and dry. And we are in this series of squares, Mars squaring Saturn retrograde, Mars coming into a square with Jupiter and Pluto retrograde, all in Capricorn. And so this is a time where we want to be buoyant, to be nimble, to be free from being brittle. We need fluidity of motion. Saturn, Pluto, and Jupiter have been clearing out space in your life actively. Those places that have been dissolving. Now Mars retrograde is coming in to activate that which has shed and to initiate you in this next layer of the journey. I find that this Mars retrograde is really asking each one of us to move our physical bodies in new ways. Do something that is different, that is outside of your comfort zone. If you find habitually, like, you can do all sorts of yoga moves, but you never walk outdoors, or you haven't ridden a bike in 15, 20 years, do that thing that you haven't done. Dance naked in your living room, or climb your local mountain. Move your body in a new way. Use your non-dominant hand to do the things that you do on a daily basis. This Mars retrograde is also offering an opportunity to complete the projects that you've been really wanting to tend to for some time now. This will create a lift, a sensation of fulfillment. And you may find that you're able to get some things done that you haven't been able to, and then there are things that you want to get done that will be challenging. So the energy is gonna affect everyone a little bit differently, because it depends on if you're born during a Mars retrograde or not, and what house it's falling into, and what Mars retrograde is doing with your natal Mars. However, I just want to invite every single person here listening to know that time and space are collapsing, and to be so hung up and stuck on the concept of a year like 2020 is just another fold in time and space, and ultimately is this conscious agreement we've made as a collective to follow the Gregorian calendar. But other than that, these years are pretty meaningless.
And so there have been a lot of memes floating around about, oh, I'm like just going to sleep through the rest of 2020, or I'm just going to smudge the whole year out. And some of these memes are quite funny. And it's also like, it's the way that we collectively fall asleep, is we decide collectively, oh, this is too challenging, like I'm going to check out. Well, we need all hands on deck. Every single person here is essential in this journey of life on this beautiful planet Earth in 2020. We need you. And so this is a time to really stay awake. As Mars goes retrograde, stay awake. Redirect the energy. When you feel the intensity of it, redirect. Do something different. Drink a big glass of water. Take a shower and wash your hair. Eat something that you wouldn't normally eat that will change your palate. Like, give your body some sort of activation that is going to affect the senses, that is going to affect the way it moves. Turn on music that mimics your mood and dance the mood through you. Write about it. Move the energy. Allow the energy to be and move it through you. It's looking to be expressed. As Mars in Aries invokes the warrior, we must acknowledge the fact that we are in a battle of sorts here on Earth, an intergalactic battle for the precious energy of humanity. Stay on purpose. Invoke your creativity, your craft. Be strategic and on point. There's a force that would like nothing more than to take hold of your sacred life force. This Mars retrograde asks, can you live with spiritual courage? The opportunity is to act with pure instinct, to defend rightful territory with high authority. The key is sovereignty. Mars retrograde is about initiation, resurrection, and return. Each day is literally like a fire walk. You get to determine how you use your sacred energy. Only you get to define what is sacred, what is holy, and how you spend your time. And as we come towards the weekend on Saturday, September 12th, Jupiter turns direct at 17 degrees, 24 arc minutes Capricorn. Jupiter has been retrograde since May 14th. So we've had plenty of time to analyze and rehash our plans. And it is likely for most of us, many of our plans have not gone as we have visioned them to go. Jupiter in Capricorn is one of the more challenging placements for Jupiter. And we only have between now and December, the middle of December, until Jupiter goes into Aquarius. So now is the time to reorient, to move forward. Last Saturday, Pallas Athene went direct, and so some of these outer planets are now all stationing direct. And by the end of September, Saturn will be direct as well,
later on in October, Pluto will go direct. And so the energy is shifting. We also have a Mercury retrograde coming up in Scorpio. So the personal planets are doing a deep cleanse of the psyche, of our instinctual self. And remember, Venus was in her retrograde earlier in the year from May through June. So the initiation continues. It is a continual string, like a string of pearls. And as we go through this, it is a series of events that is polishing you in this diamond mind process. That brings us to another new moon on Thursday, September 17th, the Virgo New Moon, at 7 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. As I cast this chart, the sun and moon are at 25 degrees precisely Virgo, with a Virgo rising. This is a lunar cycle that is practical, that is about being embodied. As this new moon comes through, Jupiter has gone direct, Mars has gone retrograde. We have both the sun and the moon being squared by the nodes of fate, by the north node in Gemini, the south node in Sagittarius. And in the last episode, episode 9, I spoke about the nodes of fate and the significance of their journey on the Sagittarius-Gemini axis, where we are truly, truly, truly dissolving the old paradigms, the old belief systems, the old ways of connecting to religion, to politics, to government, to philosophies. And we are connecting with new concepts, new ideas, new ways of thinking, new ways of learning, new ways of teaching. So with this new moon, this Virgo new moon, as the nodes of fate are squaring the sun and the moon, there's again an activation about where we are coming from and where we are going. What are the gifts we've received? What is our destiny, our dharma as a collective of humanity? And are we willing to truly shed and let go of those old beliefs? And each one of us as a human being has a vote in that. It's an excellent new moon to build with. The sun and the moon trine Saturn and Capricorn. And Saturn and Capricorn really wants to grow. It wants to build. And that trine is this free-flowing energy. And so this is a fabulous time to look at your new moon intentions from the Leo new moon and to continue to build, and to build with the practicality of the Virgoian energy. To be precise, Virgo is such a misunderstood sign. Virgo is the maiden, the holistic healer, the organizer, the humble servant. Pop astrology will just, drive Virgo into the ground as workaholic and neurotic and organized and disciplined and mental and analytical. And all of these things are true. All of these abilities and ways of being are parts of Virgo. However, Virgo is about this mind-body healing with a true need to function efficiently while adapting to that which has been learned. Virgo is the season of refinement after the journey from
Aries instinct, to Taurus's building and lushness of the present moment, to Gemini's curiosity and learning exchange, to Cancer's deep emotions and memories, to Leo's expression of creativity and that radiant self-confidence. Virgo comes through with this mutable, adaptable yin, receiving, receptive, earthy, grounded energy that culminates the season of summer and wishes to truly honor the process and all that is seen and to elevate it to its highest. Virgo energy is about being a great analyst, about discernment. It is a frequency that is helpful and useful, practical, modest, and focused on that which is pure. The shadow frequency of Virgo can be very shy and hermetic, neurotic, overly critical of self and others, very mental and fussy, even a hypochondriac. Through a higher experience, Virgo frequency comes to the realization that we are here to devote with steady consistency. However, perfection is not attainable in the physical body. Everything is in flux. Everything is in a state of change. And so that perfection is ever shifting. As we really step deeper into this Virgoian frequency, it is this frequency that is this beautiful mother archetype. Virgo as the virgin being one who is sovereign, virgin having full power over her body. A true virgin is not one who has never had sex. A true virgin is one who knows the sacredness of their body, who knows the art of their body, the holiness of their body, and who decides whom and what may touch or have interaction with their body at any given point. This concept of the virgin is a frequency that is all about sovereignty. Sovereignty, to be sovereign, is to be a king, a queen, or a person of high authority, a person of royalty. A true royal is a being who is in service to the divine. To crown thyself is to literally wear the symbol of service, as the crown sits upon the crown of the head, to remind one of the holy connection between the cosmic beings and our bodies as portals, as channels that anchor down and through to Mother Earth, and about this connection. And as we bow, as we come to place our head towards the earth, we allow the heart to come rise higher than the head. To be of service requires the ability to continually come to center, to burn off the dross, to burn away anything that is not pure or holy, to dismantle the systems of oppression. The vulture crown was an ancient Egyptian crown worn by great royal wives, female pharaohs, and high-ranking priestesses. This crown depicted a vulture with its two wings hanging from both sides of the head, and was a symbol of great protection, a symbol of sovereignty, a symbol of divine conception, of purity. This concept of divine conception, light conception, runs through parts of ancient Egyptian mysticism, particularly around the journey of Isis, Auset, Iset. The vulture was very important in Egypt and could be worshipped as the Nekhbet, as Isis or Mut. And the vulture was considered to be the origin of all things. The vulture goddess Nekhbet, she of Nekheb, El-Kab, symbol of the royalty of Upper Egypt, the great protector, and the wings of the winged sun disk. One could say that Isis's most primordial form is the Nekhbet, the winged vulture goddess. Tracing the lineage of ancient goddesses on earth, in the beginning was the bird goddess and the snake goddess. The winged vulture goddess comes from the primordial waters of creation, just as the primordial snake goddess. The Nekhbet is ancient and powerful. As we have discussed, Iset's home is the star Sirius, Sabtet. Iset is the child of Mother Nut, as are Osiris, Horus, Set, and Nephthys. Isis is the great mother goddess, the wife of Osiris, daughter of both Jeb and Nut, the archetype of wifely love and devoted motherhood, goddess of magic and healing, green goddess, and guardian of the canopic jars. The vulture goddess, creatrix of Upper Egypt, the great mother goddess, self-creating. The vulture is very zealous in caring for its young. And for a female vulture to become pregnant, there's no sexual intercourse that is needed. The female receives the male seeds that are carried by the winds. This is a true virgin birth, just as Isis has a virgin birth, a light conception. And as we look at the archetype of the vulture, we can see that vultures are quite often misunderstood, as they're often associated only with death. However, as Ted Andrews wrote in Animals Speak, in Greek tradition, the vulture is known to be a descendant of the griffin, a mythical creature. The griffin is associated with heaven and earth, spirit and matter, good and evil, guardian and avenger. The avenger of the nature spirits. And the vulture is a link to the mysteries of life and death. It's fascinating how these creatures, these beings like the snake, the vulture, that connect us to the cycle of life are some of the most feared creatures. part of this journey we're on in these times is a reclamation of the cycle of life, which in order to achieve that, we must come to terms with death. The vulture is all about purification, death, and rebirth. This is a symbol of new vision, a symbol of purification, particularly for the Pueblos. Its medicine would restore harmony that had been broken. Its feather was used in rituals for grounding after shape-shifting ceremonies, facilitating the return of the self. And the vulture as a scavenger serves to limit infections and bacteria from corpses that could otherwise spread to other animals who do not have the resistance. So the vulture literally ingests that which is putrid so that other animals don't have to take it in. Vultures walk, stand, and perch with dignity, with confidence. They have great sight. They have an ability to use the thermal rising from the earth, which gives them an extra lift. Their ability to use the thermals is similar to auric vision. In a way, they can see the subtle energy emanations from the body. The vulture is a patient hunter. It can soar for hours without flapping its wings. It has tremendous symbols of flight without power. The wings rarely move, reflecting that the power for flight does not come from them. They simply use that which is available. That is a sophisticated life force. A mystical secret of the vulture is levitation. Levitation is a law of spirituality. The vulture denies the material, instead floating, rising, and soaring as a symbol of movement away from that which is mundane. It is a symbol of distributing one's energy so that gravity does not weigh and hold one down, whether it is the actual gravity of Earth or the gravity of situations and experiences. Vulture teaches how to use energy powerfully and efficiently. Because they do not need to flap their wings often, they have keen eyesight, 8 times more sharp than a human's, and a very strong sense of smell. They are able to smell. And it is through the scent powers of the vulture that Great Mother Isis, Set, was able to find the parts of her beloved's body, Osiris, and to collect the parts that Set had distributed throughout the land of Kemet. As she had shape-shifted into the vulture, she was able to smell her way to her beloved. Vultures ask us, how do things smell in our lives? Smell is associated with higher forms of discrimination in metaphysical tradition. How are we smelling? How are we digesting? In alchemy, the vulture is a symbol of sublimation, particularly because of its resemblance to the eagle, a sign of confirmation of a new relationship between the volatile aspects of life and the fixed, the psychic energies and the cosmic forces. A promise that the suffering of the immediate was temporary and necessary for a higher purpose was at work. And so in these times, in this great Mars initiatory journey, may you call upon this vulture medicine to instinctually utilize your sacred, holy life force to rise above the mundane, to burn off the dross, to come to that which is pure, to your full royal sovereign self, to be that king, that queen of your domain, and to utilize right action in these times of great, powerful transformation. May it be so, and so it is. Blessed be. Ashe. Aho. Take a moment and find yourself seated or come lie down, free of distractions, free of electronics, closing the door to the space you're in, and doing whatever it is necessary to create a sacred, quiet space. And allow yourself, as you sit or lie down, allow the body to become nice and heavy, deeply, deeply relaxed. Allow the breath to lengthen and deepen and find its own natural rhythm here and now. And as you do so, allow wave after wave of deep relaxation to enter in through the soles of the feet and travel up through the ankles and the shins and the calves and the thighs, up into the pelvic bowl and all the digestive organs, up through the vertebrae, up into the lungs and the heart, up through the shoulders, going down the arms, down through the wrists, out to the fingertips, and cascading back up the arms. This gentle wave of relaxation coming up through the throat and the neck, up into all of the muscles of the face and the head, all of the bones of your head and your whole body just deeply, deeply relaxing. All of the hair on your head deeply, deeply relaxing. Allowing the bones of you to connect to the bones of Mother Earth, the place of mineral, of memory, where your story, your ancestral story is stored, welcoming in this wise, holy part of yourself, welcoming in your female lineage, your male lineage, all of your ancestral lineage, welcoming in the yin and the yang, welcoming in the unification, that mystical marriage deep, deep from within. Welcoming all parts of yourself here and now as another deep wave of relaxation runs through your entire system, and you begin to feel yourself lying on the earth in a hot desert, sun-filled day, and this beautiful vulture bird comes and lands next to you. And as you're lying there, the vulture gently, gracefully begins to pick away the parts of you that are no longer you, the parts of you that are ready to shed, to dissolve, to let go, the parts of you that are diseased, that have forgotten, that have lost their way. This vulture begins to pick away gracefully, easefully all of these parts of you. And you just allow, as you lie here, you allow yourself to be picked away. You allow the muscles that carry the paradigms that are so far from your true essence to be picked away, to be devoured and consumed. And as you lie there, you begin to find yourself coming back to the very bones of who you are, just as your ancestors have done. And you find your bones lying there, so beautiful, like these beautiful quartz crystals, and the pure desert sun beams down upon them, activating them all the way from the great central sun of all suns, the great cosmic sun of all suns, bringing in these codes of light, of intelligence, of healing, these star seed codes filled with the great remembering. You allow these bones of yours to be filled with these light codes. And this beautiful vulture begins to flap her wings. She begins to flap her wings and dance the sacred dance around your bones of your body. And as she does so, you begin to grow new life, new muscles, new blood, new skin, new hair, new teeth, new nails. And you feel yourself filling out as you breathe in this hot desert sun, and hear and feel the flapping of the vulture's wings. You smell her scent upon you. And your flesh is fully grown out, and you are this new life, and you find yourself being drawn to come into this fetal position, and you hug like this beautiful little rock in the center of this womb of the key of life, the Ankh symbol. You find yourself holding yourself like a beautiful brand new baby in this womb of life, womb of creation, with your cells of all of your body singing with this new light, these light codes from the great cosmic sun of creation. And you allow your senses to be washed over by the intelligence of your ancestors. You allow your senses to be washed over by the intelligence of your descendants. You allow this wisdom to come through. You allow the support to come through in this moment as you begin to hold within your three grails of wisdom, your womb, your heart, your third eye. You hold in this sacred space. You hold the vision, the prayers, the intentions, the seeds of plenty that you are here to cultivate in this sacred life. And the Nekhbet, she comes now to fly through the air all around you, blessing you and your auric field, you and your lineage, blessing you. And you receive the sacred blessing, the sacred dance. You receive this holy purification and rejuvenation and regeneration. You receive and you give great thanks, and you allow yourself to receive deeper and deeper and deeper. Thank you for sharing sacred space. My prayer is that we awaken to the reality that we are a hologram for the collective. By being fierce in our authentic truth, we have the opportunity to elevate life on this exquisite planet Earth. Crystallize your medicine.